I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Desert Water Agency Board of Directors on February 18th, 2025 at 8 o'clock. And just some housekeeping for those of us in the room, if we could mute our electronic devices. And for those participating remotely or virtually, if you could mute your microphone until or unless you're ready to speak during public comment. Just a reminder that to participate virtually, the information is posted on the agenda, which was posted last week. And with that, we can move to item 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to ask Vice President Bowman to lead us this time.
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So with that, we can move to item 3, which is roll call. As I think I should have actually said this earlier, all discussion. I will call on directors in the following roll call order: Director Gracia, Director McKenna, Secretary Treasurer Bloomer, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega. And that's how all votes will be recorded. And with that, Ms. Baca, if you could take the roll, please.
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director McKenna,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Present.
Vice President Bowman,
Here.
and President Ortega.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. With that, we can move to item 4, which is public comment for items that are not on today's agenda. This is an opportunity for members of the public to discuss or to come forward and within 3 minutes talk to the board about something related to our business, but not necessarily on today's agenda. Just a reminder that as provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items that are not on today's agenda. Have we received any public comment? Okay. And are there members of the public that would like to say something at this point? Seeing none, we can move to item 5, which is public comments that are listed on today's agenda. Again, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on an agenda item today? Seeing none, we can move to item 6, which is the consent calendar. Items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion of the board without discussion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests a specific item to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Are there any items on today's agenda that a member of the board would like to discuss separately? I actually have one. That would be 6D, received and filed January 2025 Public Affairs and Conservation Activities and Events. So I will turn it over to Director Yort. Good morning.
Morning.
Really what I wanted to get at was some of the upcoming events. If you could, we could scroll to that part of the report, which I think is at the very end.
And also, I do apologize. I think you guys are missing page 1 to that report. But it should be in the attachments, at least physically. I don't, but nonetheless, events.
Okay, yes. So upcoming events. Specifically wanted to call out the 315 and 312 events, which are, and I'll turn it back over to you in a moment, which are both compensable events for members of the board. So if you could tell us a little bit about what they're about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, President Ortega. And we will be following with an email in the month of March as well as a reminder for the board. But on March 15th, we have the Desert Horticultural Society Annual Garden Tour. And on March 22nd, which is a Saturday, we have the 1 PS Picnic and Community Expo. In full disclosure, I'm not as familiar with the Desert Horticultural Society Annual Garden Tour, so if we could have Sochi come speak to that. I know she's attended in the past. The 1 PS Picnic, though, we do attend the 1 PS community meetings every month, and so this is their annual picnic. That'll be at the Ruth Hardy Park. We always typically have a booth, and I know in the past, a few of the board members have also attended and joined us at our booth as well. It's a really great community-focused event. It's a good opportunity for us to have that community touch point and continue to work on community trust and community equity as well. But for the Horticultural Society tour, Sochi, did you have anything to add?
Good morning.
Hi.
Yes, so we are a sponsor of that event, and so we provide some funding. We've been doing that on a yearly basis. And so as a sponsor, when they promote the event, we are listed as a sponsor.
Yeah. Actually, we've been a sponsor since the very beginning,
Oh.
2006.
There you go.
When Dave Luker generously offered a $50 check to the society to help pay for printing. I think our contribution might be a little bit larger at this
I
point.
was going to say it's definitely more than $50. We contribute $1,000.
Yes. Well, I wasn't trying to fish that out of you. But, and yeah, I think these are both great community events, not just for our members of the board that might happen to represent parts of Palm Springs, but for all board members. I encourage you all to consider attending. And with that, I don't have anything else to ask unless other board members do. And then we can move forward on approving the consent calendar.
Just a
Yeah.
point of clarification here. As I recall, I could be completely wrong about this, but the last year was the Desert Horticulture Society event. Was it in Palm Springs?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I don't know why I thought it was in Palm Desert. And on the 27th, the Riverside County Senior Inspiration Awards. I'm assuming that's not compensable. Is that right?
I don't believe so, but
Is not compensable at this time. We have, not at this time.
Yeah.
We are
Just
a table sponsor, so you will be receiving an email shortly, but it is put on by Riverside County Supervisor V. Manuel Perez.
Just wanted to note that Director Castillo over at Estrada over at CVWD has been trying to get his board to put this on their list for as long as I've been paying attention, for years, and they finally voted to add this to their events at the last meeting, and it was unanimous, which was interesting because they seemed to be kicking and screaming the whole way to the altar, but they all decided that they were going to support it. So I thought that was interesting. Thanks.
anything else? No? So I'll look for a motion.
So move.
Okay, I have a first from Director Gracia.
I'll second.
Thank you. And a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
I will be abstaining since I was not here for a number of those.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you. Item 7, action items. We'll start with action item 7A, request board authorization to increase water conservation grass removal program budget. Mr. Elliott. Good morning.
Good morning. I am just going to go ahead and read the background for you really quickly, just provide some context, and then from there, if there are any questions or anything like that, I'm sure we can help you out. So in October 2023, the California legislature passed AB 1572, which bans non-functional turf. And in July 2024, the State Water Resources Control Board adopted the Making Conservation a California Way of Life regulation. The two rules have resulted in additional media coverage that has kept participation in DWA programs strong despite limited advertising. The DWA grass removal budget for fiscal year 24-25 was $1 million. As of February 5th, 2025, only $89,915 remains. DWA has also received $1.15 million in funds from the City of Palm Springs in their fiscal year 23-25 budget. That is a 2-year budget, if that was confusing. The city cost share funding is a $2 to $1 match. DWA must expend $2 for the city to provide an additional $1 for a total rebate of $3 per square foot of grass removed for applicants within the city of Palm Springs. DWA has $223,000 of those funds remaining. In order to fully utilize the city's cost share according to the MOU, DWA will need to commit an additional $448,000. Additionally, DWA has a grant commitment of $41,662 from the Department of Water Resources Urban Multi-Benefit Drought Relief Grant to benefit disadvantaged communities. Staff is requesting an additional $500,000 in funding for the 24-25 grass removal rebate program for a total of $1.5 million. And that is to kind of make up for those two commitments that were mentioned beforehand. To date, Public Affairs has not advertised the grass removal rebate due to the smaller budget for fiscal year 24-25. If the budget augmentation is approved, the agency will begin advertising the grass removal program and the city's cost share funding. If additional funding is approved, it will provide the ability to maximize the city's cost share funds before the agreement expires at the end of the fiscal year. The grass removal rebate program is funded equally by the operating and general funds. The source of the funds for this request will be $250,000 from the operating fund, water sales revenue in excess of budgeted amounts. As of December 24, water sales revenue is $1.7 million more than the anticipated due to increased consumption compared to historical trends and anticipated conservation factors. The remaining $250,000 of funding will be from the general fund reserve for operations. On February 10th, the Finance Committee reviewed this request and supports approving the proposed $500,000 budget augmentation for the grass removal program. So that fiscal impact will be $500,000 with Finance Director Sines having reviewed this report. And the recommendation is that staff requests board authorization to increase the water conservation grass removal program budget by $500,000. All right, all that said, were there any questions or any comments from the directors or
Thank
anyone
you.
else?
Then we'll start with Director Grosha.
What would be careful. Now you're going to start advertising it. Is that going to take you over budget before the end of the budget year? Do you think, I mean, is there a reason for advertising when we haven't been, when we're at really, we're augmenting now? So, you know, are we going to artificially somehow increase the enthusiasm for people to come in with applications and then have to augment again before the end of the budget year? I just don't know if that's good business if we're trying to stay kind of within a certain budget.
Right.
Or are we budgeting so that we can budget more later?
I can take that one, Clark. Thank you for the question, Director Grasha. So Public Affairs, as mentioned in the report, due to the much smaller turf rebate budget for the 24-25 fiscal year, we were advertising all of our other rebates, and the program's interest to date has really just been organic, word of mouth, our landscaper workshop, different activities. We haven't done any of our typical advertising, whether that be our digital ads, whether that be any of our ads on the Palm Springs Post or the Valpak. And so to address your question, we don't believe that we will need another budget augmentation. The hope is that this will increase enough interest so that we don't leave any remaining funds from the city of Palm Springs on the table. If we were to anticipate that we would be going over the allotted amount, we would then stop the program and just focus on what has been already approved. We would not approve without funds available.
And you guys do that internally. You don't need a board action to stop.
That's correct, which
Okay.
we have previously done in the fall. We had a wait list as we were waiting for some of the city's reimbursement funds to
Right.
come in to allow the program to be
The
supplemented.
city's on board with that?
The city has already committed their funds for this budget year, so they are.
Okay,
So, I mean,
yeah, I understand. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Director McKenna?
I have a comment and a question. The comment is I see some irony in the fact that our water sales are above budget because people are not conserving. And we're going to take some of that money and spend it on conservation. But I'm happy about that. I have a question, though. I commented on this previously. As the state clamps down on ornamental turf, shall we say, people can come to us and ask for a rebate for removing it in advance of the state making it mandatory. Do we have a mechanism for making sure we're not subsidizing turf removal that will happen anyway in the next few years?
So that is something that we've been discussing internally, and what our plan is to bring that forward to the Public Affairs and Conservation Committee with staff's recommendation on what the program might look like. I think right now it is status quo until we see some of those AB 1572 markers go down, and then revisiting what that program looks like. And since it is required by the state that that type of turf be banned, it is possible that we would make a recommendation that use your rebates right now, because they might not be available in the future. That is something, as we are going out and we're doing commercial audits, we're doing HOA walkthroughs, the conservation team has been great in a lot of proactive outreach to make sure that we're getting to those communities right now and doing that, one, education piece, but two, letting them know we're still unsure what this program looks like moving forward. So it is best to take advantage of the funds available right now. There was another point I was going to make, but I think that answers the question at the crux, which is we're going to bring it to the Public Affairs and Conservation Committee and revisit that moving forward.
It still leaves me a little bit concerned that we need a mechanism for making sure we're not subsidizing today a turf removal that will be required 2 years from now.
We're doing that.
We are doing that?
Already are.
Well, I'm not sure that's a smart thing to do. Is it? And what's the other?
I agree, but they like doing it, so we do it.
I think the reason why it is a great thing to do right now is because it is that education piece. As we are talking about like the events that we're going to and getting that community trust, that community equity, and the buy-in on conservation, we want to be seen as offering a tool right now before maybe we adopt an ordinance related to non-functional turf, maybe we increase our fines. There are going to be different elements that are going to come down a lot stronger on these communities once that ban goes into place. And I think right now, having the turf rebate option as a tool is a good thing for the agency to be doing.
My concern remains. But
Understood.
I'll put,
Duly
I just
noted,
have my
and we'll
fellow.
bring that forward. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Duly noted. We'll bring that forward to the Public Affairs and Conservation Committee at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think we should, because I'd like to see this money directed towards, what is, homeowner association turf and single-family residence turf. These are savings that will last a long time. If we subsidize the turf removal for something that would happen anyway, like at the airport or City Hall, we're not getting a long-term benefit out of that.
Yeah, I will just add that historically, homeowners associations have been our largest customer segment, and they are also falling under this AB 1572, which is why some of that outreach and education has been really important to us. So they still fall under the ornamental turf regulations. And that's why we're trying to be proactive and letting people know beforehand so that they have a little bit of time to actually identify their areas, and hopefully we can assist them partially.
Yeah, but you're inviting them to game the system. You're inviting them to say, oh, we get $3 a square foot for removing it today, but we'd have to do it for free if we wait 2 years. You're inviting them to come and take a subsidy from us. I don't see that as a good use of our money. I really don't.
Understood.
There is an argument that I don't know if they're making it on purpose or not, but building your positives before you, from a public relations standpoint, because if what appears to be happening actually happens, everybody's going to hate us. And so I don't know if it's next month or a year from now, but they're going to be lined up. We're going to wish we had a bigger room.
I'm ready for that.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
No questions or comments. Thanks.
Vice President Bowman.
I do think it is significant, what has been discussed already, but the significant part is we don't want to leave money on the table if there's a dollar from the city to help the residents. I think we should, use that. And I see that as a motivation.
Thank you. I'd agree with that. I don't think at this point, we have a program in place, and we have a program that's in place until June 30th, 2025, as I remember. And I think we should support that program. And if we change it on July 1st, 2025, for whatever reasons we decide to make changes to it, then that's what we'll do. But right now we have a program, and I feel like we should follow it through. Again, echoing as well what Vice President Bowman has just said about the money on the table. I don't really want to give it back to the city, nor this grant to the state. So with that, I'll look for a motion.
So move.
Okay, I have a first from Director Gracia.
I'll second.
All right, and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Nay.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, 7B, request adoption of agency policy updates. Director Sines?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Along with your board packet, you have 7 different policies that are current existing agency policies that we have undergone a periodic review of them to look at them. We've submitted them to different strategic positions within the agency for review that have the most impact with them, and some of them to all department heads for their review so that we can incorporate any suggested revisions, find out how they've been working for us with their practical implications, along with any legal updates that are required. And with that, I just want to note these are all existing policies, so we're only talking about making updates to existing policies. The first one that we reviewed was the agency's anti-fraud policy. The anti-fraud policy was originally adopted October 4th, 2022, and a part of this review, it was sent to legal counsel for review. And as a result of that review, the only changes are suggested are moving and renaming a couple of sections for ease of use and reference. So there was no substantive changes other than that, changing any meaning or requirements of the policy, really just for ease of use. And the red line version has been provided of all of these policies so you can see all of the exact changes that have taken place. Moving on to the agency representative travel and meeting expense policy, there were several changes that were made. Generally, some clauses have been moved and renamed, same as with the anti-fraud policy, just for ease of use and readability. We have revised the authorization to travel exemption to only the general manager from management in general. This is to ensure communication amongst the management team with the general manager and make sure that us as a management team have that constant communication. Also to section 4A, subsection IB, we added the exemption of the department heads exemption for department heads' participation in local area meetings in the normal course of their duties, as the original intent of the policy was to obtain permission for longer-term travel outside of the agency's service area and local activities that are not in the normal scope of duties. So the way that it was originally written didn't really match the intent of it, so it was revised to match that intent, so that not to be overly cumbersome going and asking for permission every single time you needed to travel outside of the agency. So normal course of business, and it's really just meant for those longer term travels for department heads. Section 6D has been revised to only require permission for the use of an agency pool vehicle for overnight use, as this also was the original intent, rather than just for use for any agency business. As originally written, it would have required for an agency representative to ask for permission each time they checked out a vehicle, and that was not the intent. We do maintain a pool of vehicles for agency staff to use, such as when the Conservation Department goes out for a turf removal inspection. And so the intent isn't to make that a cumbersome process, as that's what those vehicles are there for. It's when it's removed from the pool, it's no longer available for those day-to-day activities of the agency that we want to make sure we have that communication. In Section 8C, we added the ability for the general manager, assistant general manager, and finance director at their discretion to pay for non-agency participant meals in conjunction with a meeting regarding agency business. The intent behind this is to understand that management, the agency in general holds meetings with strategic partners, and we want the ability to be able to foster that goodwill with the ability to cover the meal expenses. Granted, this would still be in line with our limits. So the same limits that would apply to agency staff and agency representatives would also apply for those guests as well. And this is not the intent that only a meal that the general manager is at or the other identified individuals are at, that it's only meals that they're at that can happen, but just at their discretion, a request can be made to them to cover those expenses for a strategic meeting that a staff member may be having. Moving on to the third policy, the meeting expense reimbursement policy for Desert Water Agency Board Directors. This was originally adopted on February 21st, 2023, and subsequently revised on February 6th, 2024. There's been an addition to this policy to explicitly classify additional travel expenses required due to travel delays when en route to or from an authorized activities as eligible for reimbursement. So as we have experienced, weather delays can happen and they do cause increased expenses. And so we want to make sure that those are explicitly covered because as the agency's policies was written, it had to be on an authorized day of travel. Well, the authorized day of travel may have passed if a delay happens. So we want to make sure that those expenses outside of the control of the board director that's traveling, that they're explicitly covered as well. Moving on to the Board of Directors payroll policy that was adopted on January 17th, 2023. In general, just minor updates were made to this policy in regards to the updated workflows that were changed as a result of our recent payroll module implementation with Tyler Technologies. And so we just wanted to make sure that there would be no confusion if anybody comes in after us and they were to pick up that policy of how it was the workflow was to happen, that it was explicit there. The policy was originally written general so that it was agnostic to the actual system that was being used to process payroll, but we did locate a few things that were inconsistent with how the new system actually happened, such as the handoff for approvals, and it doesn't go back to one person to then be submitted. So it's just to clean up those types of things, as we are now able to automate some of our controls with the new payroll system. For the debt management policy that was adopted on October 4th, 2022, this policy did undergo a legal review, and there was one update requested as a result of that legal review. Section 3A was revised to clarify a special district debt to mean both assessment district and community facilities district debt. So we just split those apart to be more explicit. However, there is a clause within the policy that says that isn't along with this listing of potential debt or authorized debt, is that this is not an all-inclusive listing. So there still is flexibility there, but of course, we want to be as inclusive and as explicit as possible. For the agency's petty cash policy that was adopted on September 19th, 2023, there was one minor adjustment to add "or delegate" when referring to the secretary as executive secretary, assistant secretary to the board, to explicitly allow for the delegation of the duties to the for administrative assistance while retaining the overall responsibility for the task. So again, just to make it more in line with how the policy is actually managed and implemented on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, our procurement policy, which was adopted on December 19th, 2023. In general, there are minor updates for clarity. As you can see, if you've reviewed the red line version, there are several red lines in there, but very, very minor in nature, updating some references to not lose that $1 in between 10,000 and 10,001. So just minor things like that. Section 2A revised from an annual to a periodic review. And the intent here is that this review, the procurement policy, is a very substantial policy. And it takes quite a lot of time to do in-depth review. And so we feel it would be best use of the agency's time to not undergo a full review on an annual basis, but rather a periodic review. However, with that, we'd like to note that if something came up that required a revision, we would not wait until we had another full review to bring the policy back to the board to suggest a recommended change. Sections 7E and 7F have a revision to standardize that all quotes will be submitted and retained by the accounting department, rather than being also retained by the requesting department. So this will allow for one complete and official record of quotes and bids received by the agency. Previously in the policy, it indicated that the accounting department would retain the quotes as well as this procuring department would retain them as well. So this is not to say that the procuring department cannot keep their own copy, but our official record will be maintained by the accounting department, and that happens in our new accounting system. Section 9A has the addition of the Public Affairs and Conservation Director to the Purchase Order Requisition Authority table. At the time that this policy was adopted, the agency did have this position. However, it was not filled, so it was inadvertently left out of the policy. So we felt it was important to make sure that we get that back in as that position is filled. And lastly, Section 10AA is the addition of the defined term staff director. Previously, this term was utilized and is still utilized within the policy. However, it was not defined, so we felt it important to define that term itself. And the Finance Committee has reviewed all of these revisions in depth at the last Finance Committee meeting on February 10th and supports the approval of the revisions that have been presented. The proposed updates of the agency's existing financial policies will result in no fiscal impact to the agency. And as mentioned before, for the legal review, the legal counsel has reviewed the agency's anti-fraud and debt management policies as a part of this periodic financial policy review. It is staff's recommendation that the Board of Directors adopt the updated anti-fraud, agency representative travel and meeting expense reimbursement policy for the Desert Water Agency Board of Directors payroll, debt management, petty cash, and procurement policies. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have with regards to these policies.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
Oh, I don't. I sat on this, on the Finance Committee and have a good understanding of it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Director McKenna.
Well, I'm happy to see, periodic updates happening to these policies, to tune them up if you like. Good work there. I would comment that the investment policy, when I was Secretary Treasurer, was very impressed with how the agency's assets were invested. Great treasury management. I hope it continues under your nominated successor. So,
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions, and we did go through these policies line by line in the Finance Committee,
Yeah.
so.
All right, thank you. Vice President Bowman.
I say, job well done. The devil is always in the details, and the fact that you have paid attention, you and your staff, making it better for the district. Thank you.
Okay. I do have one question. If we could scroll back to the, I think it was a meal reimbursement for non-agency.
Yes.
Yeah, we could scroll back to that.
Yes, that section 8C.
8C, there it is. My question really has to do with where a board director might fall in this policy, or if there would be coverage for a board director who might, in the course of business, take a non-agency person to lunch, for example.
Right. Yes, this policy actually does not extend to, well, actually I believe it may extend to the board director, because the way that the policy is written is board agency representative. Now, the agency does have a separate policy for board of directors meeting and expenses as they travel, but it does not have this clause. And so that may be something we may want to explicitly add there as well, because this update is more intended for agency staff.
Okay. All right.
I would like to make a comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
In my prior directorship at another district, we were allowed to do this, and I just sort of made the assumption that it was the same way here, even though I haven't done it yet. I would like to see that added. We are representing the district in very serious ways at times with non-district people.
Right. Okay. Unless there are any other questions, I'll look for a motion for,
Move the staff recommendation.
thank you. I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye. Sorry.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7C, request adoption of resolution number 1342, establishing policy and guidelines for investment of Desert Water Agency funds. You again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. So we just went through the rest of the agency's financial policies that we reviewed, and this one is an agency financial policy. However, it is separate. This one is a board resolution, so I felt it was important to take it out of the group of the rest of them and address separately, as we will be requesting the adoption of a resolution. So attached for the board's review is a copy of Resolution 1301 that was adopted on June 6, 2023 with proposed updates. Government Code Section 53646A2 recommends that the agency investment policy be brought before the board annually for review. Well, as you can tell, from June to February, it's been a little bit longer than annually. So it's been about a year and a half, but that was purposeful, as we waited until January to do the review to align with the changes in the government code and the publications that are produced that explain and provide guidance on any updates. So that's the reason for the additional 6 months. So we're kind of getting on this January, February review process so we can have that guiding documentation as we're doing this review. So after the review of the government code and the 24 and 25 policy and California Debt and Investment Advisory Committee local agency investment guidelines, that's the guidelines I was referring to, for investment of the Desert Water Agency's funds, it was determined that there were no revisions necessary because of the recent government code updates. So within these updates, as a result of any updates to the government code, there was identified no changes necessary. However, we do have a few minor changes that are requested to for clarity and alignment with government code language as it is currently written. So the two updates that are requested is updating within the first paragraph the gender references, previously just he and now to he, she, and when referencing the general manager. Also in the second one in section B, liquidity, updating to incorporate the language within the government code section 53601 for clarity. It's not that it was inaccurate, it just didn't properly align with it. So I felt that it was necessary to use the same language that's there as it was a bit more explicit. As a result of these changes, there are no updates to Schedule 1 of the investment policy, though it has been included for your reference. The Finance Committee has reviewed the proposed changes to the agency's policy and guidelines for investment of agency's funds and supports the adoption of the updated policy as presented. For the fiscal impact, there is no fiscal impact associated with the updates to the agency's policy and guidelines for investment of agency's funds. And legal counsel has reviewed the updated resolution. And staff recommends the Board of Directors adopt resolution number 1342, establishing policy and guidelines for investment of agency funds. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay. Director McKenna.
I think this is where my comment belongs.
Exactly.
I scrolled a little too far down the page, so I'll just restate that. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions.
All right. And Vice President Bowman.
None from me.
None from me. So I'll look for a motion.
Move the staff recommendation.
Great.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a first from Director Grasha, a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. 7D, request authorization for board compensation for attendance at Metropolitan Water District tour of the San Jacinto Tunnel. Assistant General Manager Tate, please.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. At the request of President Ortega, staff contacted Metropolitan Water District about a tour of one of their facilities during their annual aqueduct shutdown. I worked with Metropolitan staff to coordinate a tour of the western portal of the San Jacinto Tunnel on March 17th, 2025. The tour will start at 9 a.m. at the entrance of the tunnel and conclude around 11. This item was discussed at the February 13th Executive Committee, where it was requested to be brought to the full board to request approval for board compensation to attend the tour. The fiscal impact is none. The fiscal year 2024-2025 budget includes board attendance at meetings and events. Finance Director Science has reviewed this report. Staff recommend the Board of Directors approve and authorize compensation for attendance at the March 17th, 2025 MWD tour of the San Jacinto Tunnel. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great. Thank you. Director Grasha?
A couple of points. First, thank you for getting this started, and thank you for following through. Another tour of Division I facilities. It's a nice thing to see. Will the board be getting a email with the time and date?
Yes. We'll be sending it out soon.
Because it's not far, it's like 3 weeks, I guess. And
I've already arranged the tour, so
Right.
it's all scheduled. It's just a matter of who attends.
Great. That's it.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Director McKenna?
I think this is a great opportunity for our board of directors to get familiar with that part of the aqueduct. I think we should all go in the tunnel, and I hope we all come out again.
Right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions. Thank you for coordinating and scheduling the tour.
And Vice President Bowman?
Can I say I'm excited to do this? This will be so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, you can say that I think all of us are excited about it. I hope we are. It is actually not in Division One. I think it's in Hemet, is it not?
Well, it
Down in
starts here.
San Jacinto, so Gilman Springs Road.
Yeah, yeah,
It starts on this side and goes through the mountain.
yeah.
We're going to be on the
We're on the gonna be on the other side of the mountain.
other side.
Oh,
of the
we're
mountain.
going to go around the back?
Exactly.
In fact, why don't you, if you don't mind, taking a couple of minutes to sort of explain what's going to happen? And
Yes.
because I think you put together a little bit of a timeline or a schedule or something along those lines.
So the plan is that we'll all gather at the agency around 7:30, and then we'll collect our PPE. So we'll provide PPE, which would be a hard hat, a vest, and boots, and a lock to make sure you don't get locked in the tunnel. It's a lock-in, what's it? Lock-in, tag-in, tag-out. Tag-in, tag-out. At 7:45, we'll leave the agency operations center. We'll carpool in agency vehicles. Though if a director desires to drive themselves, they could drive themselves. At 9 a.m., we'll arrive at the tunnel entrance. At 9:15, we'll join Metropolitan in their safety meeting. As you imagine, they take this very seriously. So they'll be conducting a safety meeting. The intent of the tour is that they are going to be measuring the weir. This is a settlement agreement between Metropolitan and various parties in that valley, and every year they annually measure the weir. So they're going to measure the weir first, and then after they're done with their official measurement of the volume of water that's coming in the tunnel, they will take us in and show us how the process is conducted. Then at around 10:45 or so, we'll leave. So we'll be in the tunnel for about 45 minutes, half an hour, something like that, and then we'll return back to the agency. As I mentioned, there will be some personal protective gear. You probably wouldn't want to dress in your finest clothes. Jeans, we'll provide boots. I'll need all your boot sizes and vests and hard hats and stuff like that. And I'm excited.
Yeah. So we're not going to actually need to, I mean, other than, as you said, recommend wearing clothes that are not, that we don't care about so much, but we don't need to worry about the PPE at all. You'll be, including the lock, you're going to arrange for that.
Correct. Yeah. So we actually have hard hats for all the directors already. Those are in the cabinet behind you. We'll get some vests and boots, and then the locks.
Mm-hmm. And the locks have our name on them, so they know who we are in case we get left behind. Right. Okay. Great. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to this. I hope that we can all make it, and there'll be a follow-up email, as you said. I think you're going to be asking at that time for our boot sizes and such. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. So with that, I'll look for a motion.
So move the staff recommendation.
All right, and I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Director Gracia, we have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
and President Ortega.
Aye,
Motion passes.
thank you. Just thought I'd add too, there are going to be a few staff people that are joining us as well. I believe we have up to 8 spots on the tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go.
Well, you have done the hard work making it happen. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. All right, we can move to item 8, which is our general manager's report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. So for the first item, this is an event that the agency has participated in for many, many years. And I have asked Conservation Specialist Ernie Valenciano to come up and talk about it. And he wrote the report, and he was the judge at the event, and I thought it would be a great idea for him to come and just give you a little insight into
Okay.
this.
Great. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, President Ortega, members of the board. Happy Tuesday. It's great to be here as General Manager. Steve mentioned Desert Water Agency does take part in the science fair on an annual basis for the Palm Springs Unified School District. And it's a great opportunity because we get to show up and we get to judge a lot of the projects that students work very hard to present. So we usually show up and it's a gymnasium full of boards, students running around, people judging. Every now and then I get confused for a student and they ask me where my project is. I'm just a judge. But we feel that this is very important because, as we know, water planning in California is a hot topic right now. We were just talking about AB 1572, non-functional turf, where if you want to discuss making conservation in California a way of life, we need to be smarter with how we plan to use these resources. And we also need to take a really important, strong role in the education of the youth. So us judging these projects is a great opportunity for us. Every year we've had a longstanding tradition of identifying one water-based science project for recognition on what we call the Desert Water Agency Science Achievement Award. And in order to qualify for this award, the project needs to be water-related, it needs to be creative, have a well-established scientific process, and can stand up to criticism with regards to data and results. So believe it or not, a lot of these 4th, 5th graders, like they know their projects. And so we usually do like a 5 to 10 minute interview where we learn about their projects, ask them some questions to see if they can defend their hypothesis or even admit when their hypothesis was incorrect, right? So that integrity in knowing you could be incorrect, but the end goal is to have a project that's, that gives you good results. So Palm Springs Unified School District did express their gratitude. They've extended an open invitation to Desert Water Agency for future years. And we feel that this is an important opportunity for us because it's a chance for us to connect with the community and make an impact on these young students' lives, because you never know, there could be a moment in the future where one of these students chooses a career in water, and that career could be with Desert Water Agency.
Hey, Ernie, can you explain the winner?
Winner, yes, thank you. So 5th grader Kenneth Stock from Rio Vista Elementary was the winner of the award, and he had a water-based project revolving around filtration. So the variables he was testing were things like cotton, sand, activated charcoal, believe it or not. So he was testing how good these variables filtered water, which directly relates to what we do here, right? We have activated carbon filtration if we look at some of our facilities and how important it is to make sure that these systems are in place for us to have high quality, reliable drinking water. So Kenneth was able to win this award, and he received a certificate from DWA, but also a $50 gift card. So kudos to Kenneth.
Thank you. I know we're still in the middle of our report, but could we take a moment to ask questions?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, great. Director Gracia, do you have any questions?
No questions, but I think this is a great project, and I hope that you find a way to continue it, as you suggested you will, but also maybe intensify it through later years as they continue through their education, so that when they get to that road where they have to make that choice, they'll make their turn into the front door here, hopefully.
Yep.
All right.
You got to follow through with kids. They're kind of dumb. They're forgetful.
Director McKenna.
I'm tremendously impressed by 5th grader doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
2 comments. One, we should give them more than $50. And secondly, he's better qualified than the new head of the EPA. Thanks.
All right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions, but thank you for going and doing the interviews and everything. That's a really, really good job. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
I do agree with Director McKenna. $50 is not near enough. $250 would be something, a prize to aim for. And anyway, that's just well done.
Good feedback.
Thank you. So I have a question and a comment, and it might have been in the report and I didn't see it or hear it. How long have we been participating in this program?
That's a great question. So I've been going the last 3 years, and I've only been here
3
that
years.
amount of time. So I know we've gone for years before that. I can look into that and find out for you, but I'm sure it's It's been
I think
for
we've talked about it before.
many years.
Since I've been here, we've been participating in this,
Okay.
so it's 30 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And then my comment is not directly related to this program, but just sort of relates to the idea in general. This week is Modernism Week, and every year the Palm Springs Modern Committee, in conjunction with Modernism Week, holds an event at St. Teresa School, where I think one of us went to.
There. There was no Modernism Week back then,
No,
but
okay. It's actually the 20th anniversary of Modernism Week, so you're right, there wasn't Modernism Week then. Sorry. Yeah, that didn't really come out very well, did it? My apologies. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is at Serene, the Modern Committee, in conjunction with the school, has a program that they've been doing probably for about 8 or 9 years now, with the I think it's the 5th grade class or the 6th grade class. 6th grade. Okay, thank you. Where they go into the school and working with the 6th grade class, teach them a little bit about mid-century modern architecture, and then each member of the class picks a building in Palm Springs from that era, and they do a report on it, and they make a model of it. And then today is the today is the day, this afternoon, at St. Teresa School, coincidentally, where members of the public can go and see these models and talk to the kids, not unlike what happened at the science fair. Talk to them about their project and the architect and what they learned. And I always really enjoy it. I think it's a kick because these kids are really smart, and they have a personal connection to the building. For example, Frank Sinatra's home on Calusa, well, between Alejo and Calusa. This one young woman a few years ago, her mother used that house for planning parties and events. And so she had been in the house, and that's why she chose that particular house. Or it might be the visitor center up on North Palm Canyon. So I encourage people to go check it out if you have the time. I think it's today from like 1 to 4, and then it's also on Thursday, I believe. But I love programs like this because they're fun and they're educational, and I encourage us to continue to participate. And it sounds like we will because we've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very much for telling us about it. Right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ernie. Okay, the next 2 items is in regards to our 5-year update to our Sigma plans for both the Indio Subbasin and our Mission Creek Subbasin. For the Indio Subbasin, there are the group of Desert Water Agency, CVWD, Indio Water Authority, and City of Coachella Water Authority will be splitting the cost of the plan. Currently, Todd Groundwater submitted the proposal for the 2027 alternative plan update. Again, this is a 5-year update that is required. That cost for each agency is estimated to be just over $325,000. Very expensive. They plan on starting the work in April of 2025 and having it completed by January 1st, 2027. For the Indio Subbasin, back in 2018, the Board of Directors authorized the general manager to enter into it was a second supplement to the MOU for that plan, which again authorized the GM to continue participating in these plan updates. For Mission Creek, again, there's 3 participants, Desert Water Agency, Coachella Valley Water, and Mission Springs Water District. The cost here is we're looking at just over $321,000 to do the 5-year update for that plan. And for this plan, their CVWD is currently working on an MOU. There is not an MOU that carried for future plan updates. So we are doing a new MOU for this plan, which we'll be presenting to the board once that is prepared for authorization to execute that plan. We have our system leak update here. You can see Indian Canyon Drive had 9 leaks on a stretch of pipe there, which definitely is something that we'll have to take a look at. As far as labor hours, 201 labor hours. And then we have our HR meeting and activities. Ms. Hopping, is there anything here that you'd like to highlight that?
We've been working on getting our open positions filled. We had a few retirements happen, so we're getting those filled. It's a good reason to have an opening for those that left, not for us that are trying to fill those shoes. But I think we're in a good place to get them all filled, and we should be full staff within the next few weeks. If all the job offers go well, then I'm going to be making today. And we have begun meeting with Teamsters representatives. So the general unit employees have separated into general employee staff and supervisors, managers, confidentials. So Teamsters have elected to represent the general staff unit. We had meetings to come to an agreement on that. And so we expect to have a good relationship with them going forward. And I think that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hopping. For general managers meetings and activities, just some highlights. We had our finance committee meeting on the 10th. And then on the 11th, met with Western Municipal Water District, along with Finance Director Sines and Assistant General Manager Tate, and Victoria Lord, our Director of Public Affairs and Conservation, met with their team. We met in Banning and had a lunch meeting, and got to just go introduce ourselves and go through what we're working through and what they're working through, some of their projects that they're focusing on, and we got to discuss with them, and so I thought it was a very productive meeting. Then on the 13th, we had our executive committee meeting, and also on the 13th, I, along with Finance Director Sines, went up to Mission Springs Water District, attended their workshop, and Finance Director Sines had a presentation for their board. I thought she did a fabulous job. They still have some questions for that, but hopefully we answered most of their questions that their board had regarding Mission Creek and water deliveries and the financing side of things. And with that, I would conclude my report and be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Director Grusha, do you have any questions?
On page 100, there's a mention of the current consultant. I wonder who that is, the current consultant on the Mission Creek. Does it say that?
Mission Creek.
On behalf, yeah.
The current consultant, it's the consultant that's been working, they've been doing that. It's WSP. is the current consultant. WSP, they took over a former consultant. I don't recall the name of the group that at WSP took over, but they've been the consultant that has been the original consultant firm that's worked on that.
Thanks, that's helpful. Also, the general manager report here is created by you and your staff, I guess?
Correct. Correct.
All done internally?
That's
No
correct.
consultants involved?
That's correct.
I would only ask that question. The other day, I was shocked to hear that after all these years of thinking that a particular general manager was very, very good at creating these. It turns out he's got a consultant doing his general manager reports in excess of $100,000 a year, and I was just floored by that. So, thank you for struggling through and doing it on your own time, I guess.
Thank you.
Right, Director McKenna.
I have no comments.
Okay, Secretary Treasurer Bloomer
No questions or comments.
and Vice President Bowman.
None from me?
Okay, none from me. So we can move to the next item, which is 9, Director's Reports on Meetings and Events Attended on behalf of the agency. Director Grasha, would you like to start, please?
On the 5th, we had our DWA board meeting here. On the 8th, I attended the Palm Springs Air Museum anniversary dinner. On the 10th, the Desert Water Agency Finance Committee meeting, and the Coachella Valley Water District Board meeting on the 11th, and IT training for Desert Water Agency on the 12th. And then on the 13th, Aqua meeting, LA wildfire, FEMA impacts. This was an Aqua event, sponsored event, and it was quite interesting. They covered all of the requirements to be able to qualify for FEMA funding, with a focus on not just the most recent fires, but fires going back to the Paradise Fire, the total about 3 or 4 of them. And it's interesting that you've heard on the news probably that the FEMA is not going to require soil testing. And that kind of hangs out there as, well, you know, why? Well, Paradise Fire, and I'm making a giant assumption here, but because I happened to be at lunch when this discussion happened a couple of years ago. In fact, right after Paradise burned, and with some guys from an Aqua meeting, and their entire water system had to be pulled up and replaced, or at least that was at the time the thinking, because of contamination of the system. What happened? The meters melted and caused a vacuum which sucked benzenes from the plastics into the system, and the cost to replace that entire system was astronomical. And now I don't know that that's why they're not going to be forcing soil testing at this time on this fire, but that was, I thought, a very interesting set of comments. One set of comments at one, on the news, they're not going to force the testing. And then that was repeated, but there was no comment from the people from Paradise to say, well, it costs a lot of money to take those toxins out of the plumbing system. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Thank you. Director McKenna?
Since our last meeting, Secretary Treasurer Bloomer and I had a committee meeting on the strategic plan, and we got a sneak preview of the mission statement for the agency. And I'm thrilled to say that the word sustainability is in it. So I'm looking forward to some change and improvement in that area. That was on the 13th. Sorry, that was on the 6th of February. On the 13th, I also attended Mission Springs Water District presentation at their study session. It went well, but they still have these lingering belief that they're paying for something they're not getting. And I think we've yet to sort of explain to them that is the case with the State Water Project. We pay for something we don't get. We pay for its physical infrastructure every year, and some years they deliver 9,000 acre feet of water, but we spend millions of dollars to get that 9,000 acre feet. And I think we need to do a data table that shows it's expensive to be connected to the State Water Project. We have no alternative, but Mission Springs does not grasp that expense has to be met by everybody within our district boundaries, and 1/3 of those people are in Desert Hot Springs. And one of the directors commented they weren't sure that even with the representation that Desert Hot Springs has on this board, that Desert Hot Springs is fully protected, and I want to reassure them that's not the case. Although we represent everyone in the district, we have constituents that are in Desert Hot Springs, and some of the poorest people in the district live in Desert Hot Springs, and we do rigorously look after their interests. So, lost my calendar now. Also that same day, attended the executive committee here, and that was the 13th. And that brings me up to today. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
So like Director McKenna said, I had the Strategic Planning Committee meeting on the 6th, and then Finance Committee meeting on the 10th, and that is it.
Thank you. And Vice President Bowman.
I was not here to attend any meetings in the district. I'll save my next comment for the.
Okay. I had no additional meetings on behalf of the agency to report from the last 2 weeks, so we can now move to item 10, which is director's comments, and we'll start with Director Rasha.
To me, it's a serious issue. I made a note of it so that I could remember to try to make you believe it's a serious issue. And that is what they're still calling Project Veneto, which is the Amazon warehouse that's almost complete over off the freeway. And those of you that have followed the work that I did on this project in the early days, it was originally planned to be built out on Tipton Road, and which would have required that the sewage system for that project, which at the time was a couple of thousand employees, I guess that's been pared down, would have, the leach field would have been in the Whitewater Channel, which I took offense to. And when the project was at the Planning Commission, I raised the issue, and that was the project was pulled from the agenda, and a few months later, it was announced that they were buying the property next to the new sewer treatment plant, and then it would be built there. And I understand that they're tying up the final work on the, there had to be some special force main installed to be able to get their a lift station, I guess, from right next door up to the new regional sewer treatment plant. What this did was raise in my mind the need for this district, this board, to look at the future, which is right now. We're not talking about maybe or ifs, but there are several, since that project was approved and under construction, there have been several more of these massive warehouses approved. My concern is not one of them will attach to a public sewer system. They are time bombs, more than time bombs. They are nuclear bombs being dropped into our area of responsibility in terms of water, maintaining a decent water supply for all of our water users. I'd like this board to ask staff to look at bringing in a neutral third party to take a look at this issue and determine what effect having, say, 15,000 employees will suddenly turn up over the next few years, which is literally what we're looking at, to ensure that they will be properly handling their sewage. And I think it's our number one responsibility, protecting the water supply. I understand this, if you analyze it, touches every electrode politically in the desert. The property owners that might be affected, special interest groups that are politically active might take offense to us wanting to protect the water supply. But I believe that this board needs to take a look at this and determine whether or not it's a fight that we are willing to take. I believe we must. If other board members don't agree, and I would expect that might be the case, I would just like to get it on the record for future generations that look back and ask, why didn't they do anything? And we're at that point in time where we have to either do something or just resign to the fact that all the sewage from Desert Hot Springs is going to end up in the Whitewater channel, and it's going to be in our drinking water and your drinking water here in Palm Springs, which mine, where I'm at, is already unsafe to drink according to the state of California, and you're next. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Director McKenna.
Well, I share your concern. I think that's certainly something that we should look at. The quality of the water that comes out of the aquifer will be impacted by facilities that large, not connected to a sewer system. I don't understand why they're not being, since there is a new facility right there. So, yeah, it's a comment I take note of, sure.
Right. Now, just so you know that there are reasons. Sorry.
I think if we're going to have an action item or sometime talk about this on a future agenda, that we shouldn't get into a lot of detail here.
I agree.
That's not an agenda item. Thank you. Anything else?
I just wanted to say I share your concern.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McKenna.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No comments or requests.
Okay. And Vice President Bowman?
Yes, while I was away on vacation, one of the topics that came up with people that I chatted with, and I was on a cruise in the Caribbean / area of the world, were the fires that happened in LA, because they were very recent in the minds of a lot of people. And some of the irresponsible statements that were made that there wasn't water in the reservoirs and things of that sort. It was just interesting to see what was settling in the mindsets of people all the way into the Caribbean.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any additional comments. With that, then it's about 20 after 9. If we could meet in closed session at 9:30, we'll adjourn this part of the public meeting, and thank you very much.
Recording in progress.
Right. Well, welcome back to open session. Item 12, which is reconvening. I can report that we did not take any reportable action while we were in closed session. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.